Tales of Xillia 2 was released in Japan back in 2012 and in the West 2 years later. Set a year after the events of the first game, Xillia 2 introduced us to some new faces and had us committing genocide upon multiple alternate timelines one after another. Yeah, it's a very fucked up ride. But does the sequel hold up, or is it just a shameless cash grab with minimal effort? Spoilers beware! This game had a lot of content that was meant to be featured in the first game, but given that this game wasn't meant to exist in the first place, it's pretty impressive. I love the moral gray area that's presented in having to destroy the alternate timelines in order to ensure the survival of the main timeline. I will say though that one of the main antagonists, Kronos, doesn't really have much of a presence in the story. He's supposed to be this primordial spirit, even older and more powerful than Maxwell, but he only shows up like 3 times. And as such, he never comes across as this big threat we need to actively worry about. Likewise, the pacing of the story is weird, especially in the length of its main chapters. It takes so long to get the story rolling, and the 3rd chapter is literally just a cutscene. Chapter 7, meanwhile, is so fucking long. Granted, I love Chapter 7, but it feels like this story wasn't properly paced, and the slow beginning especially suffers from this. I wasn't too fond of Luger's character. I understand he's meant to be a silent protagonist that the player can project themselves onto, given the choice system, more on that later, but it doesn't really work given that they try oh so hard to develop Luger as his own character. Also, why do they have his dialogue, his spoken dialogue, offered as bonus post-game content? What? That said, I love the darker tone of this story, and one of my favorite parts was the contrast between Prime Mila and Fractured Mila. It was so interesting to see just how different of a person Mila could have been given different circumstances. I just wish she could have made Elle that big pot of soup. The gameplay is for the most part identical to the first Xillia. It feels exactly the same, and the link arts make their return. However, Luger is the main character, and as such is in your party at all times. He uses 3 weapons: swords, a hammer, and guns, and all 3 are better for use against certain enemies. Luger also has access to the Chromatus, which builds in power till you release it against your opponent. In this form, you'll fight the enemy alone, but you'll be invulnerable, and your powers will reach their peak. Not to mention the powerful finishing moves at your disposal. While all this makes for interesting additions to the gameplay, it makes playing as anyone besides Luger feel like a handicap. One thing I'm very pissed about is the change from the Lilium Orb to the Allium Orb. The Allium Orb basically has you set a certain orb for each character, and that will automatically have them learn new skills and arts. And I hate it. It's easy enough to use, but I miss the sense of growth the Lilium Orb provided, as well as the ability to actively choose which arts and skills you got when and where. The choice system is an interesting addition, but doesn't have much to offer. The changes aren't really that, choicey. It is an interesting concept that the choices allow you to bond more with certain characters or end up causing you to antagonize some of them, but other than that, Although I do like the multiple endings, like the bad ending, oh fuck, and the debt system. Does anyone like this? No. The answer is no. Fuck the debt system. That's all I have to say. Though the graphics are the same as the first game, and I like the darker colors used to show the fractured dimensions, it feels like the animations aren't as polished as they were in the first game. There's this strange effect where models look stiff and awkward, almost like ragdolls. I will say though that I like the new designs for all the characters, with my favorite being a tie between Prime and Fractured Mila. I love how modern the redesigns are to match the Olympias culture. Still, if you're not a fan, you can change the characters back to their outfits from the first game, which I appreciate. I just wish I could use the Xillia 2 outfits in the first game. Likewise, the soundtrack is overall pretty meh. Nothing terrible, but nothing spectacular like the first. The exceptions to this, however, are the main theme, Song for You, as well as If It's For You, a score based on the main theme for the final boss that is the most kick-ass final boss theme to ever grace the human race. So all in all, Tales of Xillia 2, like its predecessor, is a pretty solid entry. If you enjoyed the first, you'll likely enjoy the second, so long as you're willing to forgive the odd pacing and the recycling of assets. Still, I really enjoyed this game, and the chance it gave me to spend another 40 hours with the cast of the first game before their send-off. Enjoy the review? Glad to hear it. Want to murder me to release your anger, then sacrifice me to the internet gods? Hit the dislike button. It's still interaction. I'll be doing a review on Sly Cooper and the Thieves Raccoonist next Friday, so be on the lookout for that. I'm also publishing a book this year, so if you could check out the synopsis and first chapter in the description below, I'd really appreciate it. Along with the teaser and full announcement trailers. May or may not show the release date, hint hint. I've also started a Patreon, so if you'd like to become one of my children, the link is also in the description. By becoming a patron, you'll not only be supporting me directly and my content, but you'll also get access to my review notes and early reviews. Not only that, but higher tiers will give you access to the Private Asshole Parade Discord server, writing critiques from yours truly, and the first 4 chapters of my novel. I'm the Unicorn of War, and this has been a shit show.